Welcome to the Copper King Mine and Railroad. Today we're going to show you a picture and show you a house that a rock went through. So stay tuned.
This big old rock went through this house. We're going to look at this picture and talk about and analyze this picture a little bit. Now this rock came rolling down the mountainside and crashed through this house. Now here's a close-up of that rock. It stopped just short of the railroad tracks there. Note the small boy standing next to it with his arm resting on the boulder. You can see the size of that rock. Now in a minute I'll tell you about how far up it came down and the speed it must have had. Anyway, in the house, you can see the roof is damaged and the fence was smashed through. The picture is too shadowy to see the damage done to the house, though. Information on the picture. First, it comes from the University of Utah J. Willard Marriott Digital Library. Bingham Canyon, Utah, page 126, if you want to look that up. The only information besides the standard they give on every picture was the house where the boulder went through, near Winnemucca Mine. So if you look in the background, top left in this picture, you can see that Winnemucca Mine. We got some pictures of that Winnemucca Mine. As you can see in the picture, the mine and mill was together on this property. History accounts that the mill was erected on the site of the old Winnemucca smelter, one of the first in the canyon. The mill opened in 1877. Ohio Copper Company either leased or purchased the mill in 1903. They operated it from 1904 to 1907, using it as an experimental mill to work out the operational details for the Ohio Copper Company mill, whose construction began in 1907 at Lark. And here's a picture of that Lark mill. Now, the Winnemucca mill burned down June 1919. Here's a map of where that Winnemucca mill was and mine. This will give you a reference to where that house was that the boulder came through. Now, this place was called Frogtown or Lower Bingham. Trains from the valley stopped here, so the ores from the mines had to work their way down to this area. One way was by aerial tram. The other way was by the Copper Belt Railroad. Now in the photo, above and behind the house, you can just barely see that train, and that would be on the Copper Belt Railroad. Now remember, they used Shay locomotives on that Copper Belt. And so here's some pictures of those Shays. Also, the engine house for that Copper Belt Railroad was right around the same area. Top left in the picture, you can see the aerial tram buckets in the photo. Now this tram came down from the U.S. mine in Upper Bingham, later to be called Copperfield. So let's show some great pictures of these tram buildings. We're called terminus or tipples. So to the right, you can see that Winnemucca mine. In the center of the photo is Utah Consolidated Lower Terminal. Now that came down from Highland Boy Mine, that aerial tram. And to the left and in the back is the one that went to the U.S. mine. That's the tram-like buckets you can see in the picture. Now note it's going the different direction. It's traveling southwest to get to the mine. The U.S. tram ran from 1902 to 1914. So let's look around this area and see some of these big tram buildings, these aerial tram buildings they had down here in Frogtown. The last photo, you can see how lively this area was. The red circle of dots is that U.S. mine terminal. But let's move up the canyon a bit so we can see where that house was that the boulder went through. I will circle the house with red dots. Note the trees in the front of the house. Now I think these are Lombardy poplars. They are tall, stately trees, but kind of trashy trees also. The trestle where the family is walking across, now that would be part of the Copper Belt Railroad, and that would be running over to the Yampa smelter you can see in the background. In the next picture, you can see the trees are a little bit taller. Now they are fast growers anyway. I just love these two pictures of this Frogtown area at this time. Look at the house from this picture. This is from another direction. This photo is nice because it has a description on it. It reads, number 25, November 5th, 1907, Copper Belt Terminal, Bingham. Now, it's labeled also. So A is the Copper Belt offices, B is the engine house, C is the coal chute and water, and it also says new line above MP 18-1 to 18-6 is the same fill as in 24. Now that's the working on the low grade line or the high line high above on the mountainside. Now I think this is where the boulder came down, and look how the distance on this and how steep it is. Wow, you could really pick up speed coming down that mountainside. This picture also gives us a timeline. So the year was probably 1906 or 1907 when they was building that high line. This picture is neat because you can see this from another direction. The bottom left is that house. Note it has the same trees in front of it there. This picture comes from BYU Lee Library and gives us more information. It tells us Lower Bingham, Denver Rio Grande High Line construction, lower terminus of the Copper Belt Railroad, blasting the cut, upper left, cut loose boulders, one crashed through the tidal house. So that was called the tidal house there. Anyway, that must have been a busy place back in the early 1900s with all the claims around Bingham. So here's some pictures of the construction of that Denver Rio Grande High Line, also called the low grade line. The gulch to the right of the house would be the Taiwaki Gulch. Now this is the gulch that has the fill way up above that you can see in this picture. Anyway, that's the house where the rock went through. Just love this picture. Now the canyon is all filled in, way up high. We just have a few photos and reminders of once there was a place like this.